Meeting. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to members of our public, both in the room and online, if there are any. I don't see anybody.
That'll be my job. I will watch to see if someone comes.
Okay. All right, good. So it could be very lightly attended. So we don't have any hearings tonight, as I think everybody is aware. And hey, Bill. Hi, Jessica. How are you? Good. We don't have any hearings tonight, but we do have some things to cover. I asked Rob, I said, we didn't have any hearings last month either. It's just unusual. And Rob, I'll paraphrase and correct me if I get it wrong, but he said, not really. He said, this time of year, he said, it's typically light. Once you get going in the fall again, it will ramp up a bit.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Yep.
Yeah.
September.
Yeah. So the good news is, well, first of all, before I say the good news, thanks to everybody for sticking with our scheduled meetings, even though we don't have hearings. Really appreciated. I know it'd be easy just to say, oh, we'll take the night off, but we have some important things that we're trying to accomplish. So I think it's good. I won't predict the time to get out. I did look at the notes from last time and we get out at 7:57. I'm not saying we're going to beat
Dan,
that, but
excuse me, can we appoint Sealy?
we will be doing that. Yes, we will. So 7:57 was the time last month. Not that we have a goal or anything, but we'll take the time necessary to do everything properly. Mr. Finger is on vacation. I have to talk to him about taking vacations during meetings, but he's decided to take a vacation.
How dare he?
You
I know.
probably take that up with his children.
So we will be elevating our alternate, our single alternate right now, Celie. So you will be sitting, and Whitney, if you could capture that, please. She'll be sitting for everything. I would like to make one minor change to the agenda. And under new business, A being meet with alternative member candidates and B being rules of procedure, I'm going to flip-flop those. So in this case, B is going to go before A. And I think I want to do that for a couple of different reasons. Among them, we have our two candidates here. And I think it'd be good for you guys to kind of see what we're thinking. Bill's like, not me. For you to see just one of the things that we're looking at. It's the rules of procedure and some of the discussion, that sort of thing. And so we'll start with the minutes. We'll go there next, and then we'll jump into rules of procedure. Tiffany's going to run that. We'll go to the alternate candidates. And then Rob's going to give us an update on zoning legislation. I've asked Tim where he is pretty well connected in Concord to give us any insight there as well. And we'll be good to go. All right.
Does anybody need paper copies of the minutes?
No, I don't think so.
Move to approve the minutes as presented. I could not find a copy, please.
She was working hard too, right?
That's Whitney's goal on the way out the door.
Yeah.
She wants to make us feel really bad when she's gone. And we're going to.
This is your last
Yeah,
meeting?
these minutes are going to be encrypted with some weird passcode that we all have to guess in order to get.
So we've got a motion on the
She's going
table to
She's going out
approve.
with a hostage.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, any other comments, amendments, anything?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
please.
On line 28. Let's state the specific reason for entering the non-public session. I would like to see that word specific change because it's really. You need to cite the RSA and whatever they're saying, whether it's employment, instead of saying, this guy did this, so you know what I'm saying? You understand that?
So what word are you suggesting other than specific?
Or could we just say?
I said
We must
RSA.
Cite the RSA.
Cite
Yeah.
the statutory authority or, I mean, that's.
Oh, it's a statutory
Must
reason.
state the
instead of
reasons from
specific.
the
That's a good
RSA.
idea.
The reasons from the RSA. Gotcha.
I see what you're saying, Celia, and I think we all sit here and know that those two things mean the same thing, but someone else may not.
Well, and
To me, when you say the specific reason, I'm like, that means you need to say, is it A, B, C, D, E, or F, right? But if you're reading it from
Yeah.
2 years from now, you won't get that.
Naturally think, no, you can't say specific reasons. Yeah, but
Okay, no, good
be
suggestion,
that specific.
good suggestion. Any other changes, anybody? Okay. I don't have any changes myself. I would like to, once we close the discussion on the minutes, revisit lines 90 through 97, but let's not do that right now. I think they're correct. That's what we said. That's how we said it. But so if you wanted to amend your motion, Susan, to say,
Yeah. To approve the minutes as corrected.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved, 5-0. Excellent. So do me a favor, just so you're not saying, what the heck is he thinking? The process by which we want to talk to these candidates and move through to, elect a candidate. I would like to offer maybe some alternatives to what we had talked about last time.
Sure.
In a way to be as efficient as possible and also be as respectful as possible to the candidate. So I'm just gonna hold that for now. So with that, we'll move to the next item, which will be rules of procedure discussion led by Tiffany Adams. So I'd ask Tiffany to take the lead on this. And I'm gonna stop talking and she's gonna tell us where she is.
Sure.
One for you. For you.
So amending rules of procedure. So first off, I think the rules we have are pretty much taken from the ZBA handbook. So I don't think that what we have needs amending. The parts we have don't necessarily need amending. I think what needs amending is adding in some parts and pieces that maybe aren't already accounted for. Such as process and procedure for filling alternate member vacancies. The process for doing that, we had discussed a hard stop at 10 PM for meetings, adding things like that into our rules and procedure. So what I think we should do is everybody take home a little bit of a homework assignment, which is to review what we already have. If you think there is anything lacking that we could add, email me. My email address is on this document.
Well, I've made some corrections in my set. Are you interested in having them?
Yes,
You want them now?
So let's
No.
not do it now. Yeah.
not now. So I would like to have you email them to me by August 1st. I will compile everyone's suggestions,
that sounds good.
report back at our,
Or I've written mine, just give them to her.
oh, that's fine too.
I'll bias myself.
So, I mean, and it's, you're also open, because there's one I have in mind about adding that I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's,
Yes.
it's not in there now, and, just as a quick preview, it's to sort of set a rule about the continuation stuff and really setting something up about that. It can be problematic having people come back the following month and the following month, like, I know we've had the same people in here sometimes like 4 months in a row. And I go, how did we get here? And I'm just, it's just something I've thought about is, geez, we should just have something that says this is what it is, because I don't know if other towns, for example, say, well, if you need a second hearing, pay another fee, for example, or is there where it's initiated by the board,
So if you can,
That's what I'll think it
Yep.
through and type it up.
yeah, think it through, try to be as concise as you
Yeah.
can. If we could all do this, not just Tim, but all of us can be as concise as possible and type it up as if it's going to go right into the
Yep.
rule. So then Tiffany can look at them all and say, okay, we got three people that said the same thing. That's good. Or we got two people that said completely opposite. That's
Yeah.
gonna take some more discussion, but I think that's the best way to go. Does that make sense? If you wanted to redo any of yours, you could do that as well. But rather than we're not looking for an essay as to why something would change.
But proposed language.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
And whether that might fall in one of the sections already existing, or do you think whatever you're.
Yeah, I need to look at it and see if it does fall within there, but it's something that over the years. It comes up and I'm kind of like, wait a minute. Is that the board prompting them to do that, or is that the moving party asking to do it? And I just some clarity on surrounding that says, when this happens, this is the process. Because it's like, if one board member suggests it, which I don't think we should do necessarily. Now we've got this, the applicant isn't actually the one leading their case. They have the burden of proof is it's on the applicant. So the applicant, if they come up with that idea, I think it's okay, right? And we always have had something where if there are not enough alternate, let's just say there are 4 board members. We have given the parties the option to come back when we do have a full board. Even though we can do it with 3, we have said to people, if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can have, another hearing date. Cause I mean, somebody may like the odds better with 5 people than they do with 3.
Yeah.
Tim, isn't that in this, in law?
No,
That part of the
you have to have a
law?
quorum. That's
You have to
the,
have a quorum, yeah, but it's it's somewhere written that they can choose.
they can choose if it's a member of the board. I was just saying that if they want a full board, I was just saying that
It's D under quorum.
yeah, when it shouldn't be, when is it okay to be initiated by us? And I use that as an example of when it is okay. Because that's a process piece, right? That's like,
So
you,
maybe that could be part of your suggestion.
Yeah.
That process, including these.
that's what I'm
What
going
is-
for. It's just, when it comes up, it's always kind of weird to me, like,
Can you put that back up to just flash pass, Rob?
Yeah, just give me 1 second.
I just want to
So what
say,
we're-
there is a William Griffin online. I have committed to the
Thank you.
duty of saying when someone's on.
So what-
Saw it.
Can I call it time out for a second? What we're not going to do tonight is start,
Talk about it.
yeah,
I was just asking, because I'm not sure if that's new or amending. It might be both, but it's just as a thought.
yep.
And I will write something that is a
We could
proposed
get on a slippery slope here and start.
one sentence and say, here's a proposal that has to do with blank, and then
Yeah.
in italicize the language I would suggest,
Got it.
and that's it. And I'm probably gonna be a 1-issue guy.
We can put up for a vote right now. I see you have more than one issue. I'll take
No.
over on that.
No, I don't have time for more than 1 issue.
All right, Tiffany, could you
Yeah.
please, go back? One of the things that we had asked was what enables us to be able to make changes? So why do we
Yeah.
need to even consider making changes? And then what RSA gives us the right to make changes? Could you review that?
Sure, so I think there are a few things lacking in here. Again, what we have, I think, is pretty good.
It's right out of the handbook. It's,
Right. But there are a few things that aren't captured in here, and I think it would be nice to have a complete, how-to on several issues or events that are not captured in here currently. So on the handout enabling language, there is a section in our zoning ordinance, section 501. In part, it states the board shall adopt rules that govern its proceedings in accordance with the provisions of this ordinance and the provisions of RSA 91A and 676.1.
Would they should help you get a copy of this?
Below there is again, in part RSA 676.1. Method of adopting rules of procedure, pretty vague. However, says rules of procedure shall be adopted at a regular meeting of the board and shall be placed on file with town for public inspection. So it seems that we have the authority to do this as we wish.
Correct. Thank you. And the last time these were updated was 2021. Is there anything else you need from us by August 1st?
We don't believe so, so depending how many edits, the complexity of the edits, how much discussion those edits might require. If it's not much, we could foreseeably approve in August. If it requires additional thought, discussion, et cetera, we might wish to extend that review period until a future meeting. So the only question I did have, is there a public hearing or public session required for final adoption? You know,
Not to,
We
Yeah,
did
we've
it,
done it, and we've done it in a meeting and in a warrant hearing, so.
we warned a meeting and a public hearing in the same night.
okay. Yeah,
Will you please send us a copy before the meeting of the stuff you want?
it's.
Oh, I think,
I just have
A copy of the rules of
what?
procedure, the way they will be changed.
or no, I think whatever you get from us for suggested things, if you take them all, compile, send those in to Rob, then it could just be in the packets next time. These are what's proposed. And
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying is.
Yeah.
It would be
but I
helpful
wanna
to
see
have that a
what
week
the-
in advance.
Paper, what the proposed changes are.
Yeah,
That's clear.
That work.
Perfect. So I'm not sure I understood the answer to the question. Is a public session required? We're gonna do it anyways, but is it required? It has to be noticed, and does it have to be?
It's not, it doesn't have to be a special meeting.
Okay,
As long as it's done in a public meeting that we have warned, which is what we do for every meeting.
Yeah.
So it's your business. It's the kind of business that you guys conduct at any meeting.
okay,
So absolutely, we'll do it at your next regular meeting. I think it's
Okay.
probably the best place.
great,
Yep.
good. Good. Only other thing I could think of is let's not rush this. I don't think anybody's saying that, but let's not rush it and try to get it done at the next meeting. If we can't get it done at the next meeting, if we have a debate, which is healthy, let's do it.
Yeah.
And also, if we have to call in New Hampshire Municipal Association,
Oh, yeah.
and get their input on these changes, we could do that as well. We want to make sure we do this right. We don't have a timeline.
Yeah,
I don't want to keep kicking it down. the
I
road,
see
but-
this as like sending to you as step one, the meeting as step two. I don't see it as the final step by any means, because I think we'll want somebody to wordsmith it, we'll want to run it by somebody, whatever. I agree. That's not a rush. It's, we've lived this long.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Okay. Great. Anything else you wanted to communicate?
That
Awesome. Thank
covers
you.
it for me.
Thank you very much for doing that. Any comments from members of the public on that topic? Either here or online? Mr. Griffin?
Nothing. I
Okay.
came in at the tail end of it.
Thank you. Hearing none, we will close that topic and move on. Thank you. So let's move on now to, the election of a new alternate. And the way I wanted to, let me start with the minutes from our last meeting. Again, I think the minutes were spot on, and I'm not suggesting they weren't. But as I read them and as I thought about it after the meeting last time, what we had said was, after the interviews, the board will enter a non-public session. That means we kick you guys out of the room, we turn off the video, and we talk about you. And that just doesn't feel right. I'm sorry, but that didn't feel right to me. And I want to have a discussion. So there's a couple other ways we could do it. One would be, we are gonna have a forum where you guys are gonna have the chance to present yourselves. We're gonna ask you some questions, blah, blah, blah. And then we're gonna, have a vote eventually. And we could do that, secret ballot, everybody fills out a.
That's what those are for.
I know, I'm just throwing out suggestions, sir. Just throwing out suggestions.
I wondered what the index cards were for.
Over-
We-
I just got them from Rob.
Tonight,
What's that?
do we need to make the decision tonight?
We don't. We could all leave here, think about it, and email our vote to Rob, who can compile them. And we can reach a decision. I guess those are the three alternatives, unless anybody has a different alternative.
Well, I'll tell you how I got to be an alternate.
Okay.
I came to a meeting, they needed an alternate, and I went home elected.
Was there anybody running against you or?
No,
No, they were desperate.
no, we had no alternate at the time that was able to, well, and we had somebody that was traveling a lot.
Yeah.
You did write a letter. You did write a letter of interest and
Well, yeah.
then
that's
the board
required,
did
but-
go into non-public. You were elected. It was weird because I'm like, there's only one person and we don't have any. But I wasn't running the meeting, so.
So Celia, you gave a aggressive shake of the head, with the, well, which method do you like? Or do you have, of those three, or do you have
Well,
different?
I think it's important if we have a confidential discussion.
Yeah.
And we don't know if there are other people that are interested or whoever's out there. So I wouldn't feel, I wouldn't jump on everything. Just give us time.
Yeah, so there's no, but the timeline has expired for people to submit their applications. So we have 2 applicants.
Yeah.
There's no more applicants. But I respect the idea of stepping back and thinking about it a little bit and having some time.
We could have them compete in a foot race.
You actually suggested a jousting match.
Joust.
Yes, you can
That
throw
works.
it.
Yep.
What do you-
You're just like, oh, how many?
How many just-
You can do
Last
it.
one, how many are we
I-
looking to on one, just one, okay? Yep.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like the idea of emailing Rob afterwards with our vote is acceptable to people. We'll say
As
by,
long as we'll have a confidential discussion.
we'll have a confidential discussion. Yeah, okay, all right. Let's do that. So we're gonna interview them. We're gonna have a confidential discussion. We'll email our decisions after we've all had time to think about it to Rob, and we'll set a timeline on that. All right, good. So let's, before we get into this, I know you guys are anxious, but the issue came up last time, and we are a quasi judicial board, meaning we're supposed to enter all of our cases without having made up our minds, having looked at the RSAs, having looked at the information presented to us, but being open-minded while a applicant presents their case. And we all try to do that. The issue I want to talk about now, we started talking about last month, and as a result of that, I thought about it more and more, and I definitely have an opinion on it. But I want to be open-minded. Somebody once taught me that God gave you 2 of these and one of these for a reason, so I want to listen. Right now, the way we are structured, it's 5 sitting members and 2 alternates. There's a possibility we could have 5 sitting members and 3 alternates. There's pros and cons to that. Based on what I read from these applicants, and their applications were very well done, and knowing each of them just a little tiny bit, we've got 2 fantastic candidates here. I don't think we're gonna walk away and say, oh, there's one clear winner. We have 2 fantastic candidates. So I wanna open it up for discussion, and I'm gonna try not to throw my bias in there too much, but before we start talking to these folks, what did people think about the possibility of having 3 alternates versus just Chu Sealy as our one alternate sitting at the table now. I'd like to get your perspective on that first.
So, you're asking me to go to 1 to 3? Is that what you're asking? My
I'm asking you,
opinion on it?
right now, our structure is 5 sitting members and 2
Right.
alternates.
Right.
What do you think of the idea of saying no, staying with that, 5 and 2, or going to 5 and 3?
So it doesn't make any difference to me. I mean, I think I've seen it, been on it for a long time, so I
Yeah.
know. Sometimes you can't get 2 people are out, you know, and then you're stuck. So sometimes I think it's free.
So you don't have a strong opinion one way or the other.
You know, what do you folks think? What do you think?
I definitely have an opinion, but I want to hear from other people first.
My opinion is having more people involved, is probably better in the case where either people are absent or need to recuse for whatever number of reasons, to have more folks on board to fill those seats, thereby eliminating some of the things Tim was speaking about just a few minutes ago, where you may have to ask folks if they would like to proceed now or wait until we have a full board to make decisions, may eliminate those possibilities. So I think more is maybe better.
Okay, Susan? So the question before us is, we currently have a structure where we have 5 sitting members of the board and we have 2 alternates. If we were to stay with that structure, and these were both 2 outstanding candidates, we would have to disappoint one of them because they would walk away not being an alternate. We have the authority to increase that and go to 5 sitting board members and 3 alternates.
That's what I think.
You would be in favor of 3 alternates if we had 2 strong candidates in front of us, Tim?
So always like, I take the position, I don't want to change stuff, but I actually have seen it where we've been short people before, on a lot of occasions. And, you know, there's always health concerns where somebody can't be here. The reason I like the idea of having the 3 alternates goes along with what Tiffany was saying. Like, I really do believe that the more people know about this stimulating topic of zoning, that it's better all the way around. You know, people know about it, then it's not just like this secret thing. There's more people that know about it, are involved. And I will tell you, in the last election, you know, neither Mike or I were on the ballot and there were 2 seats. And I got approached by people and said, please run, after the deadline had run. So I think the chances of having empty ballots are greatly reduced if you have more people that are alternates that go, hey, I like this, I'm gonna run, you know?
Okay, all right.
I could say a bit more. I think that, if you have 3 alternates, they can take turns. They won't all come to every meeting. And that, as Tim says, we need to have enough people. And I really do think that 3 alternates makes more sense.
Just want to make sure yourself.
It makes you more all powerful to Dan, because there'll be more minions.
Please
don't play this.
Rob, go ahead.
I was gonna say, from a logistic standpoint, we've got the room. As you can see, right here, there's 2 spots
Yeah.
with Bill here.
Yeah.
I'm also accommodating to a planning board that's even bigger. My planning board now with lots of alternates pretty much takes up all the chairs around this
So
table.
planning board has a lot.
How many alternates have they got?
I wanna say 4.
Now.
4.
Oh, I think we should have 5.
Why? So here's my point of view. And again, I have a bias, but I'm open. I say, what's the most important thing we do as a zoning board? And it's twofold. I'll give it 1A and 1B. 1A is, an applicant's gonna sit in front of us And it's our job to make sure that applicant gets justice done in an efficient a manner as possible. Having 5 people sit at the table plus 2 alternates means there's 7 people, which can lead to inefficiency. It can lead to 7 people asking questions, 7 people stepping on themselves a little bit at times. Anything that diminishes from our giving that citizen the due respect that they deserve, that they paid for, that we just raised their fees, we should resist. When you add a third person, you then have 8 people at the table, which, so it's not doing, we need to make sure we're doing them justice. And I worry that we compromise, that we have the potential to compromise that. I also think that the citizens of Enfield, we need to be as efficient as possible. We need to be well organized. In anything that deters from that, I tend to resist. The idea of having 3 alternates and they all won't show up and, we can pick from one or the other, that then diminishes what we want them to do. I would rather 2 people that we know they're gonna be here every month and we know they're gonna give it 100%. I don't want them to have a less than 100% opportunity. We're gonna come to public in a second. We also, we have not had the issue in the time that I've been here, so call it 16 months, where we've had an issue with quorums, not at all.
Yeah, it happened a lot when we had one board member who was in Hawaii and another one that was in Florida. They were regular members and they were in Hawaii or Florida
Yeah,
3-4 months out of the year when it's fall and winter and it's not an empty docket.
Yeah.
There's cases. And so that's not, but you can never control what the makeup of who's here,
yeah.
Celia and I could both get bubonic plague and be in the hospital for the next 3 months. I have to think about this as on a bigger scale, which is what happens if somebody down the road. I hear what you're saying about efficiency too, and that's why I say I tend to be more conservative about, well, we've always done it this way. There are things that, but I will say, but is new people have new ideas. And I like that because somebody can say something and I go, I never looked at it that way. And
Yep.
I was gonna back you up and say, if you have more people, you have more minds, and they can come up with better and different ideas. That's the opposite of having too many people. Sometimes when you have more people, you get better information. I agree with what Tim said,
So why not have 12?
because the law says we have 5.
The law says you can have 5 alternatives, so what, 10?
Well, we're lucky right now that 2 people have applied to be alternates. When I came on as an alternate, because I wanted to find out what was going on.
Yeah.
I was planning board in Haverhill. I was the only one, and if I didn't show up, there wasn't anybody.
Yeah,
And you never know what's gonna happen next.
so
I mean, like,
I got it.
Steely got hurt and she couldn't come for a while. And she was our only alternate.
No,
That
we had
if
Bob.
that is, I think that Tim's right, that if we have 3, we don't have to see them all at the table. Maybe.
no,
they don't want to.
I actually do agree with Dan. I want people here,
Yeah.
whether it's 2 or 3, because these hearings have a way of next month. Oh, it's you weren't here for that month and now it's here for a reconsideration and you're sitting in as an alternate. You don't have the historical context.
So full disclosure, one of the things I really love about this group is we try to be completely transparent, and I try to be completely transparent as well. I really like our team that we have here, and I consider a team. I think we function very, very well.
You think these people
If
are
there
rabble
was-
rousers?
If there was one thing that I would like to improve on this team, it is our being more concise in what we're trying to say. We tend to, be very verbose, loquacious and vociferous. And if we could be concise, and here's what I want to say in bulk, and I don't need 10 minutes to say it again and again and again. I think that would be beneficial to the applicant.
I agree.
So,
And
to
guilty
add-
of doing it.
and to, yes, and to add an extra person, that concerns me.
Well, the alternates would come to the meetings, correct? So they can also participate.
Yep.
So that's all learning and it's all being involved. And I think that's important.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that. And I hear what everybody's saying, and I'm just trying to articulate what I'm thinking, but, so let's table that, all right? And, when we come back to you guys with our decision, we'll kind of tell you the decision we've come to on that as well, all right? That's
I
fair.
want to add something that we were talking about in the zoning ordinance. It's, and that's our main, one of the things we do, not only follow the criteria that we're instructed to follow, but also we are to know our zoning ordinance. And we are to know case law, because that defines a lot of the information that's written in a zoning ordinance, a word or whatever. And I think that is super important for anybody who, learning about the zoning board is what they do. And our first
Question.
allegiance is to the zoning board. Okay. So we really need to emphasize that.
Yep,
you know.
Agree.
It's not just easy, do what you feel, let them do what you feel.
Yeah,
You know, but you have to look at what we have and what the zoning ordinance says. That's what we have to follow. In case law, as I've had a big discussion with you about that, it's so, it clarifies a lot.
Mhm.
So, and I think that's important to have that kind of knowledge.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's close the board discussion on this and open it up to public, comments, thoughts, anything is welcome.
I have
Yes,
several questions.
please.
I'm wondering if we have a percentage of where the quorum wasn't met at all of them. About increasing to 3 alternates.
We probably could pull that up, but it would take some work. I can only tell you in the 16 months that I've been here, we have never had an issue with quorum. Going back further than that, it sounds like we have at times, but we'd have to do some digging.
If I was gonna give you an estimate, I would say 10% of the time we've had.
There was a spell where it was happening, and I think it
That
was the
was before
circumstances
you.
of who was on the
How
board.
many years ago are we talking? That's
Oh,
about,
no, I mean, it was as recent as like 3 years ago it was happening, but it did happen.
Yeah.
When your predecessor, with Mr. Osgood, we had the same kind of thing, and we actually, I can remember conducting a number of hearings with like 3 or 4 of us.
how long have you been here?
6.
6 years?
Yeah.
And it was before your time,
Well, I was getting, the 10% I'm giving you is in my time
your
here,
time.
Yeah.
Okay,
about 1 out of 10
Yeah,
meetings has been.
I don't, it's not that much more than that historically.
good question. Thank you.
Is there something sacred about the size of the board versus the number of alternates? Is that like a standard municipal size?
Yeah, so it's in our rules of procedure. It says our rules of procedure say we can have up to 5 alternates. So we could, if we wanted to, we could have 10 people around the table. Believe me, that would be chaos. Yeah, we don't want that. You as a potential applicant down the road would not want that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just,
Would it be a possibility, as you were talking about, you kind of answered this question after I had written it down, but would it be a possibility to alternate from alternates? From a helpful, like attendance standpoint, and so from a continuity, like if there are lots of those carry over,
Yeah.
clauses. that might not be so helpful, but I don't know how often that's happening, if that's like a helpful.
Well, say like tonight, I mean, I did get an email from Bill a week ago when I sent you the reminder for the meeting. He said, I just realized I'm not gonna be able to make it.
Yeah.
So it would be like, hey, we definitely need alternates.
Yeah.
This.
You've done that before. You
Yeah.
said
But
it.
may I speak to her?
Please.
The problem with alternates alternating coming is if you're the next one and you haven't heard what's going on and it's a continuing case, you don't have all the information. And that's one of the reasons I did it the way I did, is to figure out how the works and what you do with the information you get and how you get it. You gotta be here.
I
Gotta
do
be
think
here.
that you could deal with that though. You, as the chair, you could seat the same alternate. If the situation
If the
came up where you
continuous
needed
case.
that,
Yeah.
you're the chair, you could say,
Yeah,
we're seating,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
seating the same alternate tonight because that person heard the first part of chapter one of
Right.
the case. I mean, it's not, nothing's insurmountable.
And it's also
Yeah.
rare that we have continuation, I would say. I mean, that's
It's,
probably
it
10%.
is, I will tell you, I have a lot of faith, and I'm not just blowing smoke here, in Dan because of that day we got through 3 hearings and one of them was like a 5-parter. And we did that in one night. And it was a long night, but it was done. None of those were carried over.
Yeah.
And that, that's the stuff. I agree with you on being more concise too. And it's something I need to work on, but I think again, it's something we can all do. I don't think there is anything sacred. I was surprised that it says 5 alternates. That seems, I mean, as somebody who's, Celia and I have been here a long time, that seems crazy.
Mhm.
I don't know that we've
How many
ever,
alternates in Lebanon?
We don't care.
I mean, at one
I won't
point,
say two.
we did have kind of a third quasi alternate. Kenny May, we would pull in at the last second sometimes.
So John Klug tells the story of he was on a zoning board as an alternate and he and the other alternate would rush to get here, be the first one here.
Yeah.
Because the first one was going to be seated
That's funny.
and they was going to be seated, but then they remedied that. Other questions or comments?
My last question
Okay.
was just, as an alternate, if you know someone's gonna be here, like in the case of Mr. Finger and he's gonna be on vacation, that's when Celie steps in, just so that I understand the logistics. So then she would kind of have a seat at the table and she actually is kind of a functional
Yes.
member of the.
A voting member.
Okay,
And if you-
otherwise you kind of just sit here and listen and,
No.
So you sit at the table, and you are allowed to ask questions during the discussion.
okay,
You cannot make a motion and you cannot second a motion. Also, when it comes time for deliberation, when somebody has made a motion, somebody seconded it, and then we're deliberating at that point, you actually, what the rules of procedure say is you remove yourself from the table. And that's something, if we were to go with 3, I would be a little bit more of a stickler for some of these rules that we've been a little bit lax on.
great, thank
Yeah,
you.
good. Other questions? Anybody in the public, Mr. Griffin, anything? Nope, hearing none. We
I'd
will,
like to hear the candidates tell us why they would like to be an alternate.
so that's where we're gonna go next. So we're gonna close that discussion. What we will commit to you is that we will get back to you in a timely fashion with our decision on your candidacy as well as that structure, if you will. Okay? So now what I'd like to do is ask each candidate to take a couple of minutes. When you come on up, both of you come on up, sit at the table, and you're not competing against
The
each other.
chairs are
Don't,
way
yeah.
better. You can come.
Bill, you stay back there.
That might be the broken chair,
Yeah, one of them sinks.
Thing.
okay?
Hey, so do us a favor, tell us a little bit about yourself. Jessica, why don't we start with you? Introduce yourself, a little bit about your background, your interest in the ZBA. And then we're not gonna pepper you with questions. We're gonna ask each of the ZBA members to keep your questions to just 1 or 2. And why don't we have you do your whole introduction, and then have you do your whole introduction, and then we'll hit you guys with a couple of questions, all right? It's a friendly environment, please. So Jessica, just one little piece of information. Jessica is from Doylestown, Pennsylvania. I don't have a bias, but it is where my daughter was born. Yeah, so full disclosure. Go ahead.
Bill is my husband. As you've heard, we moved here 3 years ago. We've initially lived in Lebanon for a year, and then moved here 2 years ago. We are on Mountain View. We're very happy here, but we were previously Philadelphia residents. We both work at the hospital at Dartmouth. I'm a physician assistant by training. I've been a physician assistant for 16 years. I work primarily in trauma and critical care. That's sort of like my passion. So I usually meet people on their worst day. And Bill and I both we didn't meet in healthcare. We both work in healthcare, but we kind of live to help people. That's really what makes us happy. We right now live with our dog and our cat, Edgar and Dudley. We love hiking. We love to do home projects. We love doing kind of just physical hands-on things that make places and processes better. And I kind of see the zoning board as that. I like that in my work. So I'm a physician assistant at work, but in a managerial role. And so I kind of see the zoning board as kind of an extension in my way to help the town of Enfield that way. I love this little town. It couldn't be more different from the city of Philadelphia. We lived in the neighborhood of Fairmount, which had everything you can imagine within walking distance. And so when we moved here, we were like, pump the brakes. This is not that. And that's what we were looking for. You know, we couldn't be happier with the lake and the wild turkeys running through the front yard and the moose. And we actually got a moose on the trail cam. But I think sometimes it could be more, right? So like I was super excited to see Carpenter's Cup happening, and I'm super excited to see Optimistic happening. But I think that there is a true fabric that makes Enfield so special, and all of the greenery is amazing. And I think that it takes special people that kind of know where Enfield is and where it's been to continue to keep it true to its fiber. And so having people who have been in an urban environment and intentionally left that and appreciate, how beautiful this area is, but also being open to development possibilities. I think I kind of offer an interesting perspective. I'm not trying to change it and make it a city, but being open to people who might have different development opportunities that we haven't considered in the past. And offering that voice, right? Because in my 2 years here, I've heard that maybe sometimes we aren't as progressive as we could be, and maybe offering that challenge. So
Thank you.
kind of my intro.
Super, thank you. Kyle, we're members of the Enfield Citizens Academy together. And my daughter wasn't born anywhere near where you lived, but we do have that going for us. So please tell us about yourself and your interest.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle Haspaka. I've been in Enfield for just about 2 years now. I live over on Sargent Street with my partner, who's been in the Upper Valley for just about 10 years now. I'm originally from South Florida, but have been up in New Hampshire since 2013. So I think I'm pretty committed at this point to the state. Winters are still growing on me slowly, but we'll get there. But I've really enjoyed my time in Enfield. We want to stay here long term and settle down here. And so we're trying to find ways to get more involved in the community. And so that's what led us to joining the Citizens Academy, where I was able to learn about this opportunity. It felt like it lined up well with my interests and skill set. I don't know much about zoning. That's not the skill set I talk about. But to give you a little bit of my professional background, I went to Keene State for undergrad. I have a double major in political science and criminal justice, and then a master's degree from what was Granite State College, now UNH, in leadership. Shortly after graduating from undergrad, I joined the Peace Corps, and I was a community economic development volunteer in Burkina Faso. Unfortunately, my time there was cut short due to some safety concerns, and so I came back to New Hampshire, and I started working with people still because that's what I enjoy doing. So I worked in student affairs for about 6 years at Plymouth State University. And while we, again, didn't do zoning things, I'm very familiar with hearing boards and panels. I started off by working in residential life, which was very heavy in student conduct. And so familiar with having uncomfortable conversations, asking probing questions, and trying to really find ways to remove myself from the situation and make an unbiased and fair decision while deliberating with my peers, and determining a reasonable outcome for all involved parties, which is no easy feat. I originally, or did that for about 6 years, and then 2 years ago, I started at Dartmouth College, where I work in HR now, continuing to work with people, having those conversations, less so on a panel these days. But the skill set to be able to sit back, listen to what people have to say, really make sure they get their chance to share their side of the story or plead their case in this instance. And saving my questions for the end is typically a tactic I like to do because I like to hear where other people are at in their questioning as well. Help gauge where we're missing it and helps me focus on questioning where we could be asking, where we're not thinking, where we're not looking. Similarly, I'm very interested in keeping the charm of the town. I really enjoy the quaint feeling of Enfield. I'm very excited about Carpenters and optimistic as well. It's walking distance for me, so that's very much something I'm looking forward to. But I know that Enfield is, in the Upper Valley as a whole, is growing, and people are looking to come to this area. They're finding wherever they can get in, really, and that is going to involve some zoning variances and questions along the way. And so would love to be able to offer my time and skill set to be able to balance the competing needs of a growing Upper Valley with maintaining the charm that Enfield has. That's my spiel.
Great, thank you. Thank you both. Questions from anybody? Go ahead. Trying to keep to 1 or 2 each.
I was wondering if either of you has ever come to a zoning board meeting.
No. Unless this one counts.
Celia, I know you got a couple.
Should we tell them about the 5 criteria?
No, let's not do that right
No
now.
cock.
Yeah. Secret handshake too, can't tell you.
I just have one
Please.
question. There's some, what I call professional development involved in doing this. There's like online free webinars you can watch and stuff like that, but it does evolve. And with the housing crisis and stuff, I think we're gonna continue to see that. Is that something you'd both be willing to do with like, it's like you might spend two hours on something, every 6 months or even 8, and it's just to sort of keep skills sharp. And there are times when a Supreme Court case comes out and it, at least in our history, it has been that it completely changes something. They've come out and said ABC, and you're like, well, that old Simplex case, I guess that's different now, or Shopland or whatever it is. Is that something that you'd be willing to do?
Yeah. I mean, actually, I'm at Dartmouth College right now getting my master's in health administration, and the housing crisis is something that we've worked in within our health policy class. So that specifically is an area of interest as it pertains to, health equality. But yeah, I mean, I have time to invest into this, into this.
I
company,
figured
so.
it was a softball. But it is, I feel like in all fairness, giving you like this, a little bit of an expectation of that, but.
Kyle, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. It's something I find myself going on LinkedIn learning a lot, I try to maximize the resources that I have available to me. That would be this as another opportunity to continue to grow and learn. I enjoy the reading that go along with that for some strange reason.
Can either of you or both of you give me an example? This isn't it's an interesting, this term quasi judicial, I never understood it until I had to kind of live it. So your opinion is not the most important thing. Your interpretation of the law and the applicant trying to present a case, it might be contrary to your opinion at times. Pick a top, an environmental, you might say, oh no, we shouldn't cut down a single another tree. But according to the law, this applicant might be able to. So can you give me examples of when you've had to make a decision that was different than your opinion based on the rules of the law or some other criteria? I'll go with him shaking his head first, so you can think for a second. Go ahead.
I'm struggling to come up with a very specific example, but it's definitely something I'm familiar with. In both my roles working in student affairs and now HR, there's an expectation for me to hold students and employees to the policies and procedures of the college, whether I agree with them or not, is beside the point. And then sometimes, depending on the instance, it's an okay thing to discuss openly that, you know, I may not agree with this opinion, but this is what it says we have to do, and we're gonna follow that procedure. And I would view this the same way. Justification I usually use is, I like my job, I don't want to lose my job over not following the policy.
Yeah.
But whenever possible, I try to at least humanize it and explain that just because this maybe doesn't align with what you were hoping for or what I might be hoping for you, doesn't mean that you weren't heard and we didn't follow the policies as they're understood.
And I'd use a work example to answer that question as well, and it's less about policy and it's more about ethics. In healthcare, that happens maybe not daily, but weekly, especially working in critical care where, you know, literal life and death decisions are being made. And families have to make decisions about, you know, what to do with prognostic information, and you have to help give them just the objective information and kind of guide them when you maybe know that a scenario is going to play out a certain way, and then continue the path that they want for their loved one, even though that's not what you think is best. But that is, you know, kind of what they want for their loved one, and so that's what you do, because that is kind of similar to the law, if that makes sense, if that simile makes sense. And it's hard. It's hard, but that's what that's what they want for their loved one. And so that's your role is to take care of the patient, even if you don't always agree.
Felix got a question.
Please.
I had a couple of questions.
Shoot.
See, what is it? Each of you have you been through this whole town? You've been out in the country and do you know the town?
Mhm.
And what are some of the things you like about? I know you live in town, Mountain View, I can't think of where that is.
Shaker Hill, it's just up the road.
Yep.
Oh, just up the road.
Turn left out the
okay.
driveway, turn right, and then it's your
Okay.
first left there.
All right,
They live near Callan.
now I
That's
know,
why.
it's in Moose. And one of the things, I'd like to see environmental things brought up. You mentioned it because it's very important to survival of any town. And it could be with, and Enfield is filled natural resources. And for example, where you live, not far away is a prime wetland where you have the moose
Mhm.
and probably turkeys running around, but there's a lot of wildlife and they depend on that. So those kinds of things are out there and they're pretty much to the town. It gives us our clean lakes and ponds. So those are important features. And sometimes it gets tricky when somebody wants to come in and develop and they're encroaching on a prime wetland or something like that, that it's going to be hard. You know, you have to look at the criteria, look at the, got to follow the law, got to follow, the purpose of the zoning ordinance. So, I guess that's not a question. That was a lecture, I'm sorry. But you're all nodding your head, yes, so I guess you were answering it.
But I think you bring up a good point. You're kind of speaking to the environmental aspect of things, and I was kind of speaking to some of the town development aspects of things when I was talking about
Yes,
being excited about the position. And I think there's balance in both of those things, as being a
Yes.
responsible curator for all of this and making sure that there's room and responsible room for all of
Right.
this.
yes, there is. But that's why you really have to be aware of what's good, and what isn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's the best for the development.
A question,
Protection of the sacred place.
for each of you, which is, what is your interpretation of what zoning is? What do you think zoning does for a community? What is the essence of what zoning is?
I'm happy to go first. I just feel like, all right. So to me, zoning is the definition of how space is supposed to be utilized. Whether it's, commercial or residential, and then how it can or should be subdivided. How it's gonna impact the local land. So kind of to Celia's point of is, building up a 4-story house, then gonna create all of this water runoff into a local reservoir or something like that. And thinking about how that's gonna impact the local community or ecosystem.
I also think, I'll echo that. I also think, that has to do a lot with quality of life in the town. People move to a town and feel Lebanon, name it, because they like it for whatever reason it is, and they want to keep that same charm that they bought here for. So while it has safety and environmental impact, it also has that quality of life, the lived experience that people expect to have in town. So, making sure that a grocery store doesn't end up in the middle of a neighborhood, making sure that, ordinances and zoning laws are, and policies are helping to promote a thriving downtown area. So that's where people are channeling that money, those resources, making sure that, neighborhoods stay relatively the same as when you moved in. You buy a house and you like the view. You don't want to have the field behind your house then turn into a subdevelopment the next year, then the view goes away. So I think there's a lot of different ways to take that question, but I think overall it's trying to maintain balance of what the town is and, helping to guide it to where it's going.
Not counting your own home, what's your favorite place in Enfield?
It's about to be optimistic.
Good
The
answer.
what?
It's about to be optimistic.
I actually went to their Sotheby location over the weekend. That's really cool too.
Yeah.
Really, really neat.
I would say anywhere in Basketball Lake. Pretty fun.
Awesome.
One of the things that makes Enfield unique is probably one of its biggest assets, and that's the rail trail. And that comes up frequently. And I feel so strongly about it that I recuse myself.
Because people are trying to develop over the rail trail or?
Next to,
Jeez.
Okay.
next to, it's just, I feel so strongly about it that you can expect when it comes up, I'll be gone. And, giving all you the seats.
Just get your application, if you will, under the section of what experiences would you bring? You said, with experience in urban environment for most of my life, I offer a different opinion than many in the area, lending diversity to the committee. What different opinions do you think you offer than many in the area?
I think my assumption is that most people have lived with more space than I have over the last 20 years.
Okay.
And that being having more things at your fingertips is not always a bad thing. And kind of utilizing a smaller footprint is not necessarily a bad thing, you know, so as we think about, you know, things like the housing crisis, right? You know, I know that AUDs have been something that people have talked about, you know, how we address those on people's private properties, how we do that in a responsible way, how we do that in an affordable way. Things like the covenants, you know, on our street, we have covenants, you know, how we do that, is very different when I lived in, you know, an urban environment versus, you know, we're not gonna be putting chicken coops out there, but we're gonna be putting, you know, maybe a tiny house.
Mhm.
And so just kind of thinking about that differently than someone who's used to, oh, it's gotta be a big, you know, a big property, you know, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Kyle, you, in your application, you said you, develop a strong appreciation for thoughtful decision-making, working with people who have different perspectives. What are the keys, in your opinion, to working with people who have different perspectives?
Good listening. But I think that goes back to during my introduction, making sure that the other person or other people have had the opportunity to fully express their thoughts or opinions or side of the story. I think a lot of times discourse comes from people not feeling like they were heard, because I think we're always trying to think of what we're gonna say next versus actively listening to what the people are saying. And so I think that's the most important starting point. And then, you know, there's questions you can ask the citizen who's presenting their case, but even in deliberations with the group, being able to try to unpack why people might be feeling a certain way about a certain topic. You know, asking some probing questions to try to help understand their perspective and how did you get to that point? Because everyone has a backstory that is going to lead to their decision making and opinions and biases. And sometimes by just asking those probing questions, it gives you also some empathy and understanding, and helps build a bridge to find compromise and think creatively outside the box. Because if you're trying too hard to prove your own point, you're missing all the opportunities. And going back to what Tim shared earlier about more voices in the room, it can help you really think of things that maybe you hadn't considered before.
So you both seem really, really nice. Sometimes you're going to have to say, sometimes there's gonna be people come in and you're like, oh my God, I love this guy. And, you know, his wife is here and he's making a great case and we'd love to see him stay in this town. And, you know, great citizen, but what he wants to do is just not allowed in the ordinances. Can you say no?
Yeah, a prior applicant from 9 years ago gave me a dirty look at the gas pumps yesterday.
I'm impressed you remembered him.
And I kind of went, I get it. You know, I do, I get it, but.
No, I'm serious though. Would you be able to say to my neighbor, no?
But
You have-
there are
you have
people
to.
in
That's-
town that have very strong opinions about development and not development and what's going on in town. And some of these sessions have been uncomfortable, and I put it that way.
Yeah.
And there are some people in town who like to come and tell us we're wrong, no matter what we do. And we sit here
There are
and.
other committees where you can make more friends.
I don't know, it's still an appellate board.
It is.
And, you know, I try to keep that in mind. The ordinance says that the zoning administrator says no because that's what the law says. This is an appellate board that kind of says, we see an exception to this here. We can vary from this law here. And so it really is an interpretive piece more so than it is personal, but it does result in saying no to people that sometimes have money on the line and more on the line, so.
No stranger to uncomfortable. And
Yeah, you
awkward.
worked in res, I'm not.
Well, and I was gonna add to that, and I think in a lot of these hearings, you're gonna have people upset with you regardless of what you choose. because for every time you approve a variance, there's
Yep.
quite possibly someone on the other side of that also is against that variance. So it's not even just saying no, it's also having to face the people that vote or that are opposed to something you said yes to.
One of our cases went to court and we were okay because we had done everything correctly. We have to be so careful that everything is done correctly. Cause when it gets to quite Hillsborough, which is not much help for the North Country. And you have to think about that. And, it's fascinating. It really is. And sitting there waiting to find out what the court said and that they agreed that we'd done it correctly, which is kind of like tenterhooks. It was such a relief to find out, wasn't it? Really was. So it's not easy. I ran the planning board in Haverhill for 5 years, and this is a lot harder.
I'm gonna open it up to public now, and you cannot make a positive comment about your wife. Maybe he wouldn't.
And I don't think you can make any negative comments either.
She's very tolerant.
Mr. Griffin online, any comments, questions, thoughts?
He's grabbing a beer.
Yeah, hearing none. Anybody have anything else they'd like to say from the board, or would the two of you like to say anything else? You don't have to.
Yeah, I just thank
would
you.
just like to thank you guys.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed with both of you.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
love, if it doesn't work out for one of you to be on this board, come see me because I have other opportunities.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yes, we need a minutes taker.
Yeah, we do. It's Whitney's last meeting. We need a minute taker.
I
Yeah.
don't know how we're gonna succeed without
Without
me.
her. I know.
Well,
What a difference since you've been here.
Yeah.
It's just been incredible.
I'm prepared to slide motion to continue to people across the table.
All right.
Submit this, so we get a
Thank you
note
so much.
taker.
It's great to meet you guys.
Yeah, but no, thank you very much. Let's
Thank you.
wrap this up. I think what we're going to do is, we are going to go into non-public session. We're gonna chat a bit and then we'll come back to you. Today being Tuesday, if we come back to you, say by Thursday at noon, would that be acceptable? Okay. If we do decide to go with just one candidate, please don't read anything into that. I absolutely agree with what Rob said, and Bill knows this as well. We were on a committee together. And there's
multiple alternates on that committee.
yeah. There's all kinds of things that you can do to contribute to this town. And I applaud you. And the worst thing that could happen is one of you would leave there and say, oh, I never volunteer for anything again. We
Yeah.
don't want that. So we have some decisions to make ourselves. And some of the decisions are not a reflection on either one of you. Some of the decisions are just not how we want to function as a board. So we have to come to that conclusion, but thank you both
Thanks so
very
much.
much. Okay.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you all.
See you around
Thank you.
town.
all right. See you at the gas pumps.
See you at Old Home Day.
Thanks so much.
All right, there is nothing else on the agenda, so what I am thinking I would like to do is ask somebody to make a motion that, well, before we go
Let
into
me open the
non-public.
door first if they're walking.
Well, we have to invoke which reason we're going into
Well,
non-public.
hang on a second, before we go there, the only other thing on the agenda we wanted to discuss is that our next meeting is August 12th. I also want to open it up to public comments on anything at all. Hearing none. Is anybody on the board want to say anything else not related to these candidates while we're here together? No, okay. So if somebody wanted to make a motion to go into non-public, we will not be coming back into public. So let's make a motion
So
first.
move.
You make a motion?
Sure, so move.
Second, the motion to go into non-public. All in favor, say aye. The reason we're going into non-public is to discuss, the structure, of the board as it relates to alternates. And to discuss specifically the two candidates that were before us tonight.
Do you have an RSA that you want included?
Do I have
Well,
an RSA that
Select board, just say RSA.
Yep, I think that there are two potentials. One, are we treating this as personnel?
Yeah.
And secondly, is it disparaging? Somebody could say something like, Kyle smelled bad or something.
Yeah.
And, like, so I don't know. Those are the two I was thinking of.
Yeah, and it's RSA 91-A:3. And within that
We now
RSA,
need to ask.
the reasons that,
Oh,
Tim just,
just to leave.
It's got-
You have
We're going to.
stop recording, right?
and let's make sure we really stop recording.
You gotta tell them.
Hey, Bill, Mr. Griffin, we are exiting the public session. So we're gonna hang up on you now. We can just totally, just not only, just stop altogether. Yeah, not just mute.